Hi, I'm Mary Jo Webster. This is video 3 out of a 3-part series on how to use the ESPNScrapeR package to get NFL data. Again, we're going to use our notebook file called ESPNScrapeR_video. There's a link to where you can get it on this, along with this video. If you shut down your R program after watching the previous videos, make sure you run all the code above before starting where we're at. We're going to start at line 342. Okay, so remember we made a probability chart where we showed, let me scroll back up, we showed the play-by-play probability of the Vikings in that game against the Bills. Here it is. This is the chart we made previously. What if we could make a chart like this for all 12 games and have them all displayed side by side with each other? We can do that. It's called faceting, and ggplot lets you make facet charts using your data. So that's what we're going to do in this video. Okay, let's go back down to the start of video 3. Sorry. There we go. So one of the things we need to do is to ensure the order of the plots, to make sure the data is going in the order we want so that the plots appear in the order that we want. So in this case, I want to label the charts based on what is called a field called matchup short, which is just, GB at MIN. It's just the team at the away team at the home team. And it's just a little short nickname for the game. But that matchup does not show anything about the date of the game or what order it would appear in. If we don't do this step of ordering our data, it will just randomly put these charts in, and it won't be in the order of the games, weeks 1 through 12. Well, really 1 through 13, there's a bye week in there. So what we need to do is do a factor reorder. And there's a bunch of ways you can do this in R, but I'm going to use FCT reorder to set, and what this does is you tell it to order a particular column in your data and what you want to order it by. So with something like, because we want it to go by a date, which is a continuous variable, we can just put that variable name in here. If you were wanting to order by hand, there's ways to do that as well, where you could say GB at MN and then min at PHI. Like, you could actually tell it the order manually. A pain in the butt, I don't recommend it, but you can if you need to. So this is mainly using some base R. We're saying we're assigning to the column called matchup short in the table called prob, and we're assigning this factor reorder. That's all it's doing. So now if we do this, the default is ascending order, in this case chronological, which is what we want. If you wanted to sort something by descending, you would have to add some code here to tell it to do it descending. Okay, so now that is ordered, we can proceed with our charts. So these first 4 lines of code here should look very much like our previous chart, except we're using a table called prob, which is our new table that has all 12 games in it. And then we're still using row ID for the X value. That's kind of like the game sequence. And then this time we have that new column we created called Vikings prob, which has just the Vikings probability regardless of whether they were the home team or the away team. And again, I'm going to make a line chart. And I've set the labels on the y-axis to a percentage. And I'm taking away the labels on the x-axis, saying breaks equals null, means there's no labels. Now the new thing here is this line at 378, facet underscore wrap. So the syntax for facet wrap is with this vars function, you tell it which column in your data do you want to base the breaks on, which separate charts on. And this, remember I said this case we want to use matchup short. And then this is an optional variable we can add in that says, make my facet 2 charts wide. So 2 charts on each row, and we're going to facet down from there. So let's go ahead and run this. and you'll see it's kind of ugly, it's crammed together, but we have 12 charts, and you can see it's going in order. Green Bay was week 1, Philadelphia was week 2, and the game yesterday, the New York Jets, here down at the bottom. Not pretty at all, lots of problems with it. We're going to start fixing it, okay? All right, so let's start by fixing these. Let's look at these scales first. Remember, we looked at the Bills game before. Here's the Buffalo Bills game. Do you see how the line on this one goes almost all the way out to the end of the chart? But these other ones, the lines stop way short of the chart. This is because some games, like the Bills game, went longer. They had more plays. So there's more plays to chart. Other games ended, fewer plays, and it ends early. The reason here is that the default with facet wrap is that the scale for that x-axis is going to be the same for every chart. And so it makes it as big as it needs to be to match the biggest game in this situation, and then all the other ones just end up being short. But we can fix that. So as part of facet wrap, one of the other optional arguments here that you can put in is how to handle the scale. So there's several different ways, and you can find this in the documentation for facet wrap. The one we want is called free_x, which means it just lets that x-axis be adjust for whatever it needs for each separate chart. So that's the only thing I've added to this code. I've added one other thing up here in the R, right at the beginning of the R chunk. I've added fig.height and fig.width, and I've set them to 12 and 8. I messed around with this to kind of figure out what I like. But you can see now these charts are not as slammed together. We could certainly make them a little smaller, but for video's sake, this might be better. But here now, isn't this better? Look, here's the, sorry, my screen's acting weird. There's the Buffalo game. Look, it goes out to the end like the others, but all the others go out to the end as well. So they look nice. And because we're not really putting a label down here on the x-axis, it doesn't really matter what those are. Okay, let's do some more styling. So all of that here is, and normally if I were doing this in real time, of course, I would just keep editing the same code chunk, keep adding to that code chunk. But to make it easier for you to follow along and to be able to use this notebook file yourself, I'm kind of going piecemeal and basically making a new chart with each chunk so you can see how it all comes together. It's just a teaching tool. So if you were doing this for real, you would just keep adding to the same code chunk and keep building it up. And this is how I like to, that kind of idea of starting simple and building up as I see the need is how I build all my ggplots. Okay, so I want to add one more little piece here now. I want to put a line at the 50, make this line at the 50% mark more noticeable so we can kind of see where the 50% is. What's there, were they, favored to win or not favored to win at any point in the game. So we're adding this geom H line, which stands for horizontal, and we're saying the y-intercept equals 0.5, which is that 50% that tells it where to put the line. And then I've set a color, and this is a dark gray color. This is a hex code that I got off the internet. So you can see there's a dark gray line there now, a little more noticeable, and you can really see like this Detroit game where they were below 50% for a good chunk of the game. And against Philadelphia, they were down there in the basement the whole game. Okay, so that looks a little bit better. Let's see what else can we do. We did this with the previous one. We identified where the overtime game was, remember? Now, this seems a little more tricky when you have lots of games. We only have one game that went into overtime out of these 12, and I only want that one chart to show up. And amazingly, this works very slick because we're telling it to use a different data set. It's not using the data set that the rest of the ggplot is using. It's making its own little data set, and it's finding the one place where there's an end of regulation record and putting it into that one chart and not the other charts. So now you can see there's no red lines, no red lines. There's the Bills game. There's the red line like we did before. Now, if you had more than one game with overtime, then that other game would have a red line as well, indicating the start of overtime. Okay, so I want to label it. Now we're getting deep in here. Hang with me. So all the way through these first, all of that is what we've done so far. We've already done all of those lines. So now we're going to add on this geom text. So geom text is how in ggplot you add some text. And this is a tough one to wrap your brain around for a while, but you have to feed it a lot of little pieces of information to get it placed in just the right spot. But then you have some optional things like the color. And in this case, we're going to do something with the angle, like which way it goes. But the key things here are that we need to tell it that where to place it, which is x equals row ID. And again, we have to give it that data, and we're telling it that look for the play type end of regulation. So, and I have this at the end of this geom text, but I think you could have it at the beginning. It probably would make more sense there, but it works. So then here's the key, this part right here, the AES, and notice that there's parentheses starting on line 435 and ending on line 439. Those are the pieces that need to be inside the AES, the X and the Y for sure. We don't need the color and the angle. If you accidentally put like the color in there, it will create a legend that you don't really need. That's how I figured out what was wrong, that this didn't work. But what I'm saying, the Y equals 0. So this is kind of an optional thing. I want it to start at the bottom, have it be at the bottom of the chart, which means I want it on the 0 line of the Y axis. If we were to put it at 0.5, it'll be halfway up the line. And we can do that in a minute. And then this H just and V just, horizontal and vertical, kind of indicates the distance from the line. And this is something you can play with a little bit. You can do like a negative number or a positive number, and it moves it around depending on whether you give it a positive number or negative. And really you just kind of have to play with it because every chart might be a little different. So let's run this. And again, we're putting a label called overtime, and we're coloring it red. I've also set the angle to 90, and so you can see what it's going to do. Looky there. So it's going up the side for angle equals 90. And notice that it's really close to the line. That's that 0, what is it, the H just? Yeah, H just is 0. So now if we did, I'm going to say angle is 45. Let's just play around just to see. And I'm going to say Y equals 0.5. And then I'm going to make H just -1. Let's see what happens. Whoa, it put it way over there, and it put it at a 45-degree angle. But because I told it 0.5, and then I did the negative H, it on the 0, like it moves it way over, so it's not working. So I'm going to return that H just to 0. Let's see what happens with that. And the V just equals 1 might be why it's above the 50% line. No, there we go. That H just was what was screwing it up. But like we could take the angle out altogether and just have it be flat somewhere. I like it kind of, in this case, I like it down at the bottom. So this Y equals 0 because there's nothing down there. And then I kind of like the angle at 90 going up and down. But you could just leave out angle equals altogether, just delete that altogether, and it will just be a straight word, like, you know, normal going across. Beautiful, huh? Okay, let's do some more. So let me point out one thing. I did not include the code in here, but you could tweak these same two chunks here, the geom v-line and this geom text, do another set of these, but this time say end of half, and then you could set these labels and the placement and all of that, and it would put in a line for all the charts at halftime to show you where the halftime mark is. I can't quite decide if I like it or not because I have this 50% line on here already, and then if I put a halftime line on, it kind of looks like a strange box. But you could, we could also do the 2-minute mark as well, but we can use that same set of code, just tweak it a little bit to get that to work. Okay, so we'll do a little more styling. All of this is what we've already done. So we're going to add two things. One is right here, the labels, which we did on our other chart as well. So a title and a caption. I'm not going to do a subtitle this time. And then I'm going to take off those, the X and the Y axis labels, make them null. And then this section called theme. There's all kinds of things you can do within this theme, and I suggest looking it up. But we can do this strip text is the text, and the strip background is what's above the top of each chart where we have the matchup short name and that darker gray. We can tweak the size and the coloring of both the text and the background with that. And then the other piece that's in here right now is the plot title. So that's what I'm putting at the top of all the charts. It's the very, very top. Vikings play-by-play win probability. I can set the size of that using this little element right here. All right, let's run it and see what we get. Basically, the bottom line is ggplot has so much functionality that you just have to Google what you want to do and you can find the directions for it. Look at this. It's now in that purple color, the same as the lines. And it's not letting me scroll all the way down. But let's save our chart and we can open it up out here. Still running. There we go. There we go. Beautiful. 12 games. A few more to go this season. We'll see how this season goes. It's fun to look at though. All right, that's the end of these videos on ESPNScrapeR. I'm going to try to do some more NFL videos. I'm not sure when, but stay tuned. Thanks for watching.